It doesn't matter if you have the recruiting piece in place. If you don't have the retention piece in place as well, you're gonna have this constant revolving door of drivers coming in, drivers coming out. And that's a problem. And that is a bottleneck that definitely can be fixed. What is going on? Laura's here, founder of Carrier Intelligence. We help carriers recruit and retain better drivers for their companies using disruptive methods. And today I want to talk to you about a concept of building a skyscraper and how you can apply that to your company to help you ultimately scale your growth as well. So I learned very early on, whenever you're building something, the most important thing, it's not the windows or the material or anything like that, it's the foundation, okay? Because if you wanna build something large, you have to have a rock solid foundation. What does that mean for your company? Well, if you're a trucking company, it doesn't matter if you have 20 trucks in your fleet or a couple thousand, you probably have noticed that you have reached different plateaus. When you try to get to that next level up, there are growth pains. It becomes hard to kind of keep growing and scaling. And that's oftentimes because the foundation is weak. There could be a crack in that foundation that's preventing the building from going up as high as it has the potential to. And so what we want to do is take a step back and make sure that fundamentally the foundation of your company is set up for success. So with the right elements, the right materials, you can keep growing and leveling up your company year after year, not only hitting, but exceeding those growth targets and positioning your company in a way years from now, it matches with the idea in your mind of what you want your company to look like. So the two foundational components we're gonna be talking about are universal with every company. They need them. That is recruiting and retention. Okay, those are the two elements that you have to have in place from a foundational standpoint in order to keep building. So real quick, recruiting, quite simple. I mean, you gotta have a recruiting force. Now that could be an individual that wears multiple hats, that's fine. You need to have somebody that's going to deal with the leads. You also need to have leads coming in. You need to have a system for those leads coming in with predictability, and then an SOP in place, a standard operating procedure in place for your recruiters to take in order to increase the chance of drivers actually going from applicant to employee. In some previous videos, I've covered exactly what recruiters should be doing and how to build a blueprint for success for your recruiting force. Make sure to check those videos out if you haven't already. So you have to have the recruiting in place, okay? We got recruiters, we need leads, we need a system to convert those leads from applicant to employee. That is the first piece of it. And the second piece of it is retention. This is an area that oftentimes goes unlooked. And I'll be completely honest, when I first started doing this, I focused exclusively on the recruiting piece. As I look more and more into it into the future and looking at all the data we've compiled from other companies we work with, we've seen that it doesn't matter if you have the recruiting piece in place. If you don't have the retention piece in place as well, you're gonna have this constant revolving door of drivers coming in, drivers coming out. And that's a problem. And that is a bottleneck that definitely can be fixed. So when it comes to retention, what I found very interesting is oftentimes carriers spend so many resources, so much money, so much time, so much effort of getting a driver into orientation. But at that point, they almost kind of like wipe their hands clean of it. It's like, okay, big success. We got orientation filled this week. But then guess what? A couple weeks later, that driver could be gone, or a couple months later. That is a massive problem. And it's every time there's a problem, there is an opportunity for improvement. So looking at yourself now, you probably can identify where you're at and maybe some areas that you could improve upon. So it really comes down to these two things, recruiting and retention. And you can see which one is probably inhibiting you from scaling. If you have the ability to get drivers and bring those drivers in, get them to work with you, the problem's not recruiting. If your fleet has not grown for several months or several years, but you are hiring, then simply put, the problem is retention, and that is where the bulk of your focus needs to go to. I always like to think of it as a pie chart or a circle. You know, if you have a circle and this is your time, you only have this much time in the day, right? And if we try to do two things at once, there's a good chance that neither of those things are gonna be done with 100% conviction. So what you wanna do is first master one thing before moving on to the next. First thing you wanna master is recruiting. Do you have SOPs in place for your recruiters to follow? Do you have lead sources coming in? Do you have good leads coming in? Are you prospecting from the right sources? Are you using disruptive methods? Things I've covered in previous videos. If drivers are coming in with predictability and your recruiters are converting those applicants into actual employees, showing up in orientation, hitting the road, you have recruiting figured out enough. If the problem is that you're getting the drivers but then they're not staying, now you can devote your energy and time to figuring out the retention issues. Oftentimes, it is just doing what you said you were going to do. Most of the times when recruiters go out and sell a driver on a company, they could say, well, hey, look, we're a fantastic family-first company. You're a name, not a number. But then when the driver gets there, things don't add up that they thought they were going to, and they look at that as the company being unethical or lying, and it makes them uneasy working there, rubs them the wrong way, and that next thing you know, you have a driver quitting. So we would always advocate to make sure to have touch points with the drivers. You know, that first week after drivers been on the road, make sure that you talk to them, not just the dispatcher, but the director of recruiting, or the recruiter calls them and checks into how they're going. Also, make sure to have like a month touch point where 1 month after a driver has been working with you, next time they're in the office, bring them in, sit them down, buy them a coffee, chat with them, owner, director of recruiting, recruiter, dispatcher, all hop in a room for 10 minutes, talk, see what they're stressed about, what they want more about, what they need more help with, and that will show that you care a lot more. You could also have incentive-based programs. There's a lot of things you can do with retention. That is for another video, but the point is, guys, is that you have to get the foundation rock solid with recruiting and retention before you can grow that company and scale it to that next level. So if right now your company is struggling with either recruiting or retention, I would challenge you to assess and take a deep, hard look at where you're at, where you see those holes are, the cracks that you could fill, and do it yourself. And then if this is something that you want additional help with, we would love to talk to you. Feel free to hop on our website, carrierintelligence.com. Check us out. We got some great free trainings on there that I personally put together. Watch that stuff. Let's hop on a deep call together, learn more about your company, where you're trying to get to, and how we can help you get that rock solid foundation in place so you can scale your company. Take care.